But I think you have to kind of make a distinction between poetry and that kind of performance, because very often it is too monodic, too boring, too repetitive to be interesting, I think. But I think in the theater, that the young actors, for instance, we have a group of actors coming out of that background who can take in the idea of playing Shakespeare as easily as if they can do a rap number. So that mix is great.
Is there a valuable contribution that is evolving all of the time, that adds to the body of influence, though?
I think the manifestation, as always in a literature, a culture, is music. What's happening to the music? And what's going on in Caribbean music is, I think, pretty phenomenal, because it takes in all these different strains and makes it one thing. I think I like zouk a great deal, because it has polka in it and it has reggae. It's all an amalgam, which is what the Caribbean culture is, and that's manifested in the music. So in that sense, it can be made theatrical by manifesting it physically. To have that, I think that's what's happening. I think that presence, that combination of different sources and different elements mixed together, which some people might think is degenerate and corrupt because it's not authentic and steady, but that's the manifestation of Caribbean experience, and it is that multicultural and multifaceted, and great for a writer, especially a playwright.
Are you a very sensitive observer? How do you as a writer get into the human experience and express it through different viewpoints and different characters?
The novel tends to do that more than, say, theoretically, the poem, although you can do it in long poems. So I'm talking about the technique of whatever you're doing and what you're using to justify, your existence as a writer. And the theater, I think, does that, because the joy of the theater, of course, is to have a new people to write about, the Caribbean people, and to write about them not only on one level of, say, the tourist level or the level of the forest or the beach or whatever, but also to examine a little more carefully what the Caribbean middle class is about. We need more plays of that kind, that examination of what is the structural conflict, not structural conflict, but the cultural things that can go on in the class war that happens, which is more real than, say, a racial context. The class examination of what is happening in the Caribbean now, I think, is an exciting subject.
Have you written about this? What of your writings explores this particular theme of class?
I write in verse, so I don't think I'm moving from poetry when I enter the theater, so that I try to have the same complexity that you might get in a poem as you might get in, say, the equivalent of a dramatic aria of someone talking. So it is, for me, a matter of meter as much as it is a matter of structure. So even if it's middle-class language, what I try to maintain is the melody that's my own melody, the way I'm talking now, and how far it can carry itself into something that may be metaphorical and, discursive in its manifestation in terms of dialogue. And that's there. I think it's an extremely enriching place to be for a writer now.
Is it accessible? Do you feel that your writing is accessible to a broad audience, or, as you say, is it, poetry readings don't attract?
No, it's not accessible at all. In fact, it's far from accessible, because first of all, the subjects that I'm writing about are not of interest to anybody on Broadway. They don't care about the life of a black fisherman, if that's what I'm writing about, or the life of an Indian woman living in the country or something, because those are not box office subjects. So we have to move away from the possibility of hoping that you can have a hit on Broadway in which you're dealing with peasants or backward people or underdeveloped people. So that theme, that possibility just has to be erased. And in fact, it's good, because then you don't take your theater in that particular direction. You take it in the direction it should go in, which is in the reality of what you're writing about. But the temptations are there, and the temptations remain. The Hollywood temptation and the Broadway temptation and the commercial temptation. It's there for the novelist as much as it is for the playwright. You don't sell sonnets to Warner Brothers for production, but it's also, in a way, it's there for the poet as well. The great threat is that whole commercialization of art that has happened in the 20th century, because people can make tremendous fortunes from writing with luck. They can, and sometimes I think that particularly in America, that's very present in terms of the young writer who can make a tremendous fortune if they have a hit book, anything. So that's a dominating fare that's there. Since that's not present in the Caribbean, then you feel freer to do what you want without always being haunted by the idea, well, it's not going to be a hit. There's no chance of it's being a hit. So there's a little more likelihood of one being a little more truthful to the experience and glamorizing it into something that might make a lot of money.
So you consider that the sort of predominant commercialization is a threat to integrity?
Well, more and more, yeah. I mean, I can only say the obvious in terms of television, or what television does to, what it does not to the audience but to the writer. I don't think there's a writer in the 20th century who can escape the idea of a hit, of making $1 million, not deliberately but by accident even. That possibility remains there, and it grows more and more corruptible, in the sense that we now pay actors $20 million to make a movie. That's a budget of a small island, So the sense of proportion is very threatened everywhere.
You write epic poetry. You wrote Homeros. I mean, that is not a popular current form at all.
Yeah, I still wish they'd make a movie and pay me $20 million though. Despite what I'm saying.
I mean, what lies behind that? What stimulates you to sit down and write an epic poem?
I don't like, I've said this before, I'm not crazy about the word epic because it has such a pompous echo to it. It's a long book, and I guess it's epical in the sense that the Caribbean experience has been epical. The Middle Passage is epical. The Indian journey across from India to here, the piracy, the different things that have happened in the Caribbean. But that particular book, what made me want to continue daily and enjoy working on it every day was the propelling thing was celebration. I wanted to celebrate the island and the people that I knew. So back of it, there was a joy of responsibility in doing it that made me want to get up in the morning to work on it. Plus, of course, the form. The form was exciting because I had to write rhyming hexameters alternating with whatever in a terza-rima design. It was a challenging thing to do, and it was because it was formal in that respect. Then it was exciting to get up to do it. I guess like going to play golf. I don't play golf, but it must have been the same thing every day.
What do you say to a potential reader?
Well, you hope in a work like that, you hope that you're engaging the reader, and this is very pompous, but I mean in terms of delight, in terms of giving delight to the reader. I don't think that's something that's around now. I mean, I think poets now don't give delight to readers, they give responsibility. They make things very hard for the reader, and it's like a test, it's an examination. Nearly every poem you read now is like an exam, try to work out what it's saying.
A few more things. The Nobel Prize, of course. I mean, you talk about having a hit. How did you get to find out that you were a Nobel Prize laureate, and what was your reaction?
Well, I had heard rumors about